The story of the trans skateboarder, Ricky Trez, who's 29, defeating the 13-year-old Shiloh Katori continues. Ricky Trez spoke with the Daily Mail saying, "I'm not going to go easy on them just because they're kids." Trans skateboarder 29 defends competing against young girls and insists she doesn't have a physical advantage. Now, I addressed this story yesterday. I may have to make some similar points, but I think it's worth presenting this and talking about the issue at hand. And the first thing I will say is many people who didn't see the segment the other day or still may not get it, they're wondering why a 29-year-old is competing against a 13-year-old. And the issue is there's not enough female skateboarders, period. So they have no choice but to combine all of the female skateboarders into one bracket. And then what do? I mean, that's the reality. You could just not have a contest. I mean, that's the reality. Skateboarding is probably one of the most pronounced in terms of gender segregation. I mentioned this the other day. You know, when I watch the WNBA, I have no idea. I mean, obviously I can see dudes slam dunk and stuff in the NBA, but I see people running back and forth. They're competing against each other. If you have two females competing against each other, then it's going to look like an even match. If you put a female up against a male, both professional level, then you're going to be like, wow, that dude is way stronger, faster, jumps higher, and is better, and all that stuff on average. With skateboarding, it's not the same. Now, many people have tried to claim that, and this is exactly what we have here in this story. Ricky Trez speaking out now and directly addressing the controversy, going on to say that skateboarding is not about physicality. So that's somewhat true. There is a way that women, females, can defeat males in skateboarding. So let's do this. In skateboarding, it is the most pronounced. If you are not a skateboarder, you can still watch a 12-year-old boy and a 12-year-old girl and go, whoa, this has nothing to do with puberty. For whatever reason. I got two videos I'll just go through quickly because, again, I don't want to rehash too many of the same points. Guy Curry landing the first 1080 ever on a standard vert ramp. This was in 2021. I believe in 2021. Yeah, at the X Games 2021. A 12-year-old boy. This is this kid's not gone through puberty. He's still got a squeaky voice. So what about testosterone has anything to do with this? Well, it could be prenatal testosterone. We also have the video I showed yesterday of Tom Shar, who in 2012, at the age of 12 years old, landed the first 1080 ever in skateboarding. A 12-year-old boy. There is nothing comparable. There is no feat accomplished by a 12-year-old girl. In fact, there has not been any major skateboarding feat ever accomplished by a female. In fact, I'm pretty sure the most we've seen of female skateboarders is a 540. I believe we've seen 720s, but these are flyout 720s. So there's a little girl who can do a flyout 720. Flyout is when you go up a quarter pipe, and instead of going up and coming back in, you go up and then land on the ground. It's considered by many to be fairly easy, but a 720 is still good. So I think the first 720 ever done by a girl is a flyout. Typically, when we're looking at skill and if you're judging someone, a flyout is rated way lower than actually doing 720 and coming back in the transition. So let me read you the story, and then we'll talk about where we go again. Here's the update. Ricky Trez, 29, spoke to the Daily Mail exclusively about her victory over a 13-year-old girl. That 13-year-old girl deserves to lose. Well, because she defended it. Shiloh Katori spoke out defending Ricky Trez, so she deserves to lose, and she doesn't deserve to be in the Olympics. Her dream of being in the Olympics should be crushed. And her little 13-year-old eyes should see the dream of being in the Olympics slip away from her. I obviously don't mean that. What I mean is there should be a women's division and a men's division, and Shiloh, who is really good for a 13-year-old girl, should have every opportunity to compete in the Olympics. But there's something about skateboarding that I need to talk to you about. Let's read the update here on this story first. The transgender skateboarder who sparked fury by beating a 13-year-old girl to claim first prize has defended her competing against children, telling the Daily Mail, "I wasn't going to go easy on them just because they're kids." Ricky Trez, 29, is an LA-based trans woman who was formerly known as Richard Batras, a second-class petty officer in the Navy who was married to a woman and has 3 kids. 2 years ago, Treyz started taking hormones to transition to become a woman after spending her childhood feeling guilty about cross-dressing. Last year, she submitted a social media entry to take part in the women's Olympic skateboarding qualifiers, and she would have been allowed into the squad had she not failed hormone testing that found she still had too much testosterone in her body. Now, after another year of hormones, she is within the IOC hormone requirements to compete as a woman. And there it is. Ricki Treyz is a 29-year-old trans woman. Absolutely will crush Shiloh Couture. That 13-year-old girl thinks she gets to be in the Olympics. If we are judging everyone on a general standard, that is, your gender, your sex is meaningless, then let's just come out and say it. Neither of these people should be in the Olympics. Ricki Treyz is nowhere near good enough at skateboarding to be in the Olympics, nor is Shiloh Couture. Now, if we do gender segregate, biological sex, Shiloh Couture, for her age, should qualify, and Ricki Treyz, as a male, should not. So let me put it this way. If we're doing a general standard that it doesn't matter what your biological sex is, then Shiloh, you're out. Ricki, you're in. If we go by a biological sex standard and say male division and female division, Shiloh, you're in. Ricki, you're out. You see how that works? Maybe we should allow the 13-year-old girl a chance to develop her skills and eventually become one of the greatest skateboarders in history. It seems, unfortunately, we're not going in that direction. Treyz shot to infamy over the weekend after claiming first prize at the border competition in New York City, an open comp which invites kids and adults to compete against each other. This is normal in skateboarding. It is atypical among male divisions because there's too many dudes who skate. But there are so few female skateboarders that they typically just make them all compete against each other. And then the whole thing is just kind of a joke. I got to be honest. If you have 10 people who skate and one's 10 years old and one's 30 years old, and I'm talking about male or female or otherwise, you're going to be like, what are we going to do? Have the two 30-year-olds compete against each other and the one 10-year-old just not compete? Well, if you don't have enough skaters, you've got to combine it. And then it's silly. It's silly because you're like, well, obviously the 30-year-old dude is going to be better than the 10-year-old. Let's think about skateboarding. I'm just going to say this, and I'm not trying to be a brag or anything. I am a better skateboarder than both of these people. And that's kind of the point. I don't compete because as a man, I would never qualify for the Olympics, for the X Games, or any of these things. I'll tell you, if I were to compete right now in a standard AM contest out of 20 people, I'd probably get 13th or 14th place. Yet I am still better than both of these people. Well, obviously I'm better at skateboarding than a 13-year-old girl. And I'm not trying to be mean to Shiloh. She's a 13-year-old girl. I posted this video yesterday. I don't have it up today. But in my skateboarding career, when I had been skating for the same amount of time that Shiloh has been skating now, I was substantially better than her. Doing 360 flips over gaps, doing nollie hard flip late flips. I could do a whole bunch of really crazy tricks. I had hit handrails and stairs and all that stuff more so than she has. Duh. Because I'm male and I'm also older. So even though I started skating at an older age and Shiloh started skating at a younger age, being an adult or having an older person, you're just going to have more muscle mass, better control, better muscle development. That's just reality. That's reality here too between Ricki and this 13-year-old girl. Now, the issue is they combine brackets. So the age, in my opinion, just shows how it doesn't work in general. So what ends up happening in these skate contests is you'll have a 13-year-old who will skate and not be that good, but the judges will be like, but they are 13, so we'll give them some benefit of the doubt. And then you're like, that's so dumb, dude. If I'm skating and there's like a 3 flat 3, so 3 stairs, a flat portion of ground, and then another 3 stairs. And then I go very fast and I do a kick flip. Very basic, probably the most basic flip trick. You jump in the air, the board flips once under you, you catch it in midair and land it on the ground. That'd be good. If a little kid then showed up and just jumped down the stairs, an ollie as it were, the judges would be like, well, but the kid is 13, that's pretty good, and they'll score them better. That's ridiculous. This is why you don't have little kids compete against adults. However, what's the alternative? just not have a contest at all? Now, here's a point I want to make that didn't get brought up in the Taylor Silverman story. If you didn't see it, Taylor Silverman is a female skateboarder who would have won first place. She's 28, and lost to a trans woman and said this is not fair. One thing that's not been brought up is that Taylor mentioned she's often tried to enter contests in the women's division, and they said, it's not fair, you're too good, you'll just win, you should compete against the men. And isn't that funny? A biological female who should win against other biological females is told to lose against males, but a biological male who was absolutely going to crush the female competition is told it's inclusive to have this. It's a double standard. It makes no sense. So they go on to say, we know the quote, I'm not going to go easy on them because they're kids, says Ricky Treyz. She says, quote, it's funny. It's what I am getting beat up over the most. People saying you're beating little kids, little girls. I didn't intend to do that. This is the first one I've been to that I actually wanted to win. The age thing doesn't really count. Trey said she came to the realization that she is female 2 years ago after secretly cross-dressing for years as a child. She had watched her mother dress in cute outfits, she said, and had been curious but did not realize she wanted to identify as a woman until she was an adult and left the military. It was the thought of the fact that I've lived 27 years with these little guilt over random things that I didn't give myself time to understand. Okay, as for skateboarding. Trey believes skateboarding is down to the individual's skill, not their gender, strength, weight, or height, and that she doesn't fit the mold of a burly man anyway. I don't think I have a physical advantage. Look at me. I'm not buff or anything. Wait, didn't you just say it's not about physicality? If it's not about physicality, then why would it matter if you had a physical advantage? In fact, there are many skateboarders who are ripped, and you'd think they would, it's a disadvantage in many ways. I look at skateboarding, and it is true to a sense that physical skill isn't the only determinant factor in your abilities. There are some skateboarders who have no skill, but they're pro. You know why? Because they're willing to die for their sport, and I kind of mean that. I remember watching this video of this dude doing a backside lip slide down like a 20-stair handrail. And I'll translate for you. A backside lip slide would be when you're standing on your skateboard, backside is when the obstacle is behind you and front side is when it's in front of you. Makes sense, right? A backside lip slide would be with the railing behind you, you jump and then your back foot, your back foot goes over the rail, and then you're sliding down the rail with your chest facing the opposite direction to the direction you're moving. So you're going backwards down there. It's a bold move. It is fairly basic, but there's more difficulty in it. I watched this dude get wrecked. Just slip out, fall, bash, boom, bounce down the stairs, get up and do it again. Anyone can do that if they choose. If you are male or female, there is zero physical advantage in your willingness to break yourself to accomplish the trick. So, Shiloh, this 13-year-old, if she really wanted to win, could choose to just take an extreme risk. Now, the reality is that for dudes, for males, the risk is lower for a variety of reasons. The higher center of gravity is a major advantage in clearing obstacles. The more bone density, slighter Q angle, all of these things means you're less likely to get hurt, so there's a lower risk. Major advantage. But if the females wanted to, they could take the risk. They could say, you know what? I want to be the best. I'm going to do it even if I shatter my bones doing it. Because there are guys who do that. There are males who say, I don't have the same skills. I can't nollie tray flip nose manual, nollie big heel flip out. You don't need to understand that other than it was a complicated maneuver. But you could have someone who says, I may not have that skill, but bro, I'm going to go 40 miles an hour and I'm going to try and backflip this 70-foot gap. And then people are like, that is another element of being good at skateboarding. Your willingness to take risks and your ability to pull off that risk safely. So this is what Trey says. I don't work out really. I just skateboard. And I don't think skateboarding has anything to do with physicality, especially when you look at these kids these days. She said kids age 12 and up are just as much of a threat to her as adults. And that means it's fair for her to compete against them. Maybe 12-year-old boys. Look, you want to talk about the advantage between males and females? I ask you 2 questions. Why is it that 12-year-old boys who have not gone through puberty are accomplishing some of the greatest feats in skateboarding, but 12-year-old girls are not? Simple question. Because it has nothing to do with puberty. Prenatal testosterone plays a role. And many people point out the interesting thing, even among gender scholars that around a certain age, children start to identify with gender, with a certain biological sex. Young boys start becoming more aggressive even before puberty, and young girls start becoming more social. These things happen. The whole physical aspect of skateboarding isn't really there. It's really the skill level. Any kind of advantage you get is determined by, skaters know, it's your commitment and determination. That is not 100% true. I can say this. If you search on YouTube for Tim Pool Nollie, Nolli, you will see me doing what is considered to be a top tier advanced flip trick. The board pops up into the air, and then while it's in midair and flipping already, I hit it again to make it flip a different direction. It's called a nollie hard flip rewind or nollie half endo late flip. I don't know. Call it whatever you want. It's an advanced trick. That is skill. A skill that I have. I can do a bunch of very complicated technical tricks. But there are people who are pro who can't do those tricks at all, but are willing to and able to jump down massive handrails downstairs. I could do that. The fact is, I will say it right now. Tim Pool, if he wanted to, could probably backsmith El Toro. The only issue, I'm terrified. What I mean to say is, there's a stair set. It's called El Toro. I don't think it's still in commission. I've been there. I've looked at that rail. It is massive. You jump on it with your board, and you slide with your board locked onto the rail down to the bottom. The truth is, I can do all of the basic grinds. I can do blunt slides. I can do feeble grinds, Smith. I can feeble big spin out, right? You know, I can kick flip front board. I can nollie heel flip front side crooked grind. And you know what? I'm too scared to do it down big rails. If I was more willing and more brave, then I'd probably have great video parts and people would be like, wow, Tim is so good, but that's just it. There are many people who have the same skill that I do, but are too terrified to actually try and do a trick like that. I would just eat it. And the reality is there are some skateboarders who have the skill and the bravery, and that's why they're pro. It's not just about bravery too. It's that their skill is so high, they know they're not going to fall. For me, I'd be like, I'd try it. I'd probably get hurt. I'd probably pull it off. Here's a secret about skateboarding. You'll watch a skate video and you'll see some dude jump off a building and do some crazy trick and the board's flipping around. They land it and stomp it and everyone's like, yo, you did it. And then they don't skate for 3 months because they bruised their heels and their bones and their muscles and things like that. No, for real. There are tricks where people see it and they're like, wow, look what they've accomplished. And they don't realize afterwards the dude hobbled away with crutches. That's how crazy the sport can be. So I'll tell you this. I'm pretty good at skateboarding. I just don't have the commitment. I don't have the tenacity, the bravery, and the spirit to actually be a pro. I can do the tricks. Some of them are just too scary for me, and that's a reality. So that is a fair point that I want to bring up. But let's be real. The point I'm also getting to is, in some of these photos I probably can't even show on here, the people who have the combination, people who have high skill, one of the reasons they're less scared to try the harder tricks is because, quite simply, they know they're not going to fall. And that's what I was saying. For Ricky Treyz to have a lower tendency of being injured means this. Here I am right now with I think it's a sprain, actually. I thought I broke it because the pain was, it felt more like a break, to be honest. But I'm starting to get movement pretty well. So maybe just a bad sprain. I've had sprains before, and this one felt very different. Or maybe it's a hairline fracture, and I'm just really arrogant. But anyway, I was just doing I wasn't skateboarding, actually. I was rollerblading. I was launching off of a 3-foot launch ramp into an airbag, and I slipped out. And this happens, and then I say to myself, I can't risk getting hurt. So that goes in my mind. And the reason is, I have so much riding on doing this job and running this business that it's pointless for me to try and do a front flip and then bust my arm. I was trying to do a front flip a few weeks ago. We were filming it. This time I was just jumping, and it happened. But there are people whose careers depend on them risking their lives. And if you're a male and you've been injured less, you're going to have less inhibition. You're less likely to end up scared that you're going to get hurt in the first place. And so you're more willing to take the risks. If you've been seriously hurt, you're less likely to try it. You're more likely to be scared. If women have a higher tendency, females have a higher tendency toward injury due to the Q angle and a lower center of gravity, then they're more likely to be inhibited than a male would be. So my point is, I understand it's not just about physicality, but I also understand that your willingness to take a risk is dependent upon the development you had as a skateboarder and whether or not you were injured in the past. Here, let's read a little bit more. A lot of it is negative. A lot of it is positive. I think it's all necessary. People can get angry, people can get happy, and people can come together and come up with something. Personally, I don't think segregating everything is the right way. I feel like that would be calling us different, like different human race, and when we're not. I'm not saying this is the right one either, but it's the closest one that I've found for some kind of equality. What about some kind of weight-oriented, something based off body mass or weight? It's so difficult when we're trying to create a controlled group. Fair points, seriously. I took all these tests, these testosterone tests. It's a little intrusive. Maybe something based off weight index or maybe experience, like how long you've been skateboarding. You see, the issue is here. Let me read more. I don't think that's the right one. I'm not saying this is the right one either, but it's the closest I found. Okay, it says repeat. Something based off, they're just repeating the quote. Okay, here's the point. I don't think Ricky understands prenatal testosterone, fast twitch muscle, hip ratio, and center of gravity. I've read all these things, trying to understand. Look, when I was younger, I watched female skateboarders just not be good. And I'm like, I don't get it. I had a friend, a female skateboarder, who could hit big handrails and was better than everyone else. Why? Confidence and ability. But could not do a tray flip. And then I was constantly telling her, like, dude, just go full speed up the bump and just try a tray flip. And she started doing it, started getting it. And she's like, I just can't. It's hard. So I thought to myself, why is that? Like, why is it that I can jump over, so I can ollie over 6 decks. You stack the decks up, the skateboards up, interlocking them six high, and that's the most I've ever ollied over. Actually, I may have cleared, I don't think I've ever landed ollieing over 7, but I've ollied over 7 and then not landed it. So I've been able to clear it, and I don't really skate all that often, but 6 I could consistently ollie over fairly easily. And I wondered why it was that I could do that and my female friend could not. And I'm like, why? She's been skating way longer than me. She's like, we were younger, so it's not like I was super taller. I was a little bit taller, but she couldn't even ollie over, I think, 4 decks. And I just didn't know why that was. I looked it up. And then I read about center of gravity and pulling your legs up to your center of gravity. Maximizing ollieing requires you lifting your legs up to your core. And if your core is higher, then you're going to get more clearance. And I went, wow. And then I read about injuries and I went, wow. And now, understanding that, I'm like, this is why we have a male and female division. This is why we separate it. I'm going to say this because I tweeted it. As you know, Shiloh posted, or if you saw my segment yesterday, Shiloh Katori, who lost, posted a video saying she has the dream of being in the Olympics. Shiloh, you don't deserve to be in the Olympics because in your video, you say you're proud of Ricky and all that stuff, and you agree with what happened. Let's take that into consideration. You then have a bunch of pro skateboarders and you have Independent Trucks, a prominent skateboard company. You have TJ Rogers, a prominent skateboarder, all cheering and saying, good job. The industry standard and your standard, Shiloh, is that Ricky should compete and should win. And if that's the case, we are not going by a gender standard, right? We're going by a general standard. If that's the case, you are not good enough to be in the Olympics. Now, if you think that the Olympics should just say, but you're 13, so we'll let you have it, then you're asking for special treatment. And I don't agree with that. If we want to go by the standard that males and females are different, well, then Shiloh absolutely should be in the Olympics. But I'm here to respect the wishes of Shiloh. I'm here to respect the wishes of the industry. And then I will do my own thing. You see, I'm a centrist libertarian. For the most part, slightly liberal leaning, but left leaning, but, libertarian. More power to all of you. Do your thing. I got no beef. I will point out my objections, and then I'm going to go do my own thing. So here's what I'll do. I'm going to set up you know what I'll do? Hey, I'm not even kidding. Let's have a contest. We'll have a skate contest. We'll put up a grand prize of, I don't know, we could do some legit big grand prize like $10,000, and then second place can be $5,000, and third place can be $2,500, and then we'll do top brackets to 6 with a couple $100 each, and we'll have a male division and a female division, not a men's and not a women's, and y'all can have your contest. I got no issue with it. Do your thing. And then I'll make mine. I'll do that. Ricky, you would have to compete in the males contest because we'll have a male and a female bracket, not a men's and a women's. That's just it. There you go. And then I got to be honest, I don't think Ricky would actually qualify for the men's because a top prize of that big and you're going to get some big pros coming out in the male division and the top best females in the world will compete and the best females in the world will win. So look, Shiloh, if you entertain this as what you want, awesome. Good for you. Keep skating. You are really good. You're just not good enough to be in the Olympics compared to Ricky Treyz. And I think it's kind of strange that you would stand there being like, I want to qualify for this, when it's like, yeah, but you know you're not good as a bunch of other trans women as well. There are several other trans women skaters who are way better than all of these women who competed. They should be in the Olympics by your standard. So if that's what you want, encourage that and accept it and accept you're not good enough. Let me put it this way. Men are in the men's division. Should I be in the Olympics? How insane would it be if I came out and it was like, I'm going to go try and qualify for the Olympics. I'm too scared to do a backside lip slide down a 10-stair handrail, but I should be in the Olympics against all the other people who have the skill and the spirit to do it. No, that's insane, right? Okay, same standard. Shiloh, you should not be trying to be in the Olympics when you're not as good as all the other women, trans women included, who should be in the Olympics. It's just weird to me that people of low skill would think they should be. Now, I'll set up my female division, my skate contest, male and female division, and you'd probably qualify and win $10,000. But I'll do that, and we'll see how many people are really willing to be involved. I'll leave it there. Next segment's coming up at 4 p.m. over at youtube.com/Timcast. Thanks for hanging out, and I'll see you all then.